Hi, welcome to Angel's Nook. I've wanted a large nutcracker for our entrance for the holiday season for a long, long time. But storage is at a premium, and as much as I love holiday decor, I've been paring back over the years just to simplify the displays and to make use of the fact that I have very little storage here in Florida. But I happened to find, which is going to work perfectly because he's flat, a nutcracker that's 4 feet, and he could be used like a welcome board. I'm going to use him in a little different way, but I'm going to change him up. If I did him just the way he is right now and painted him, he would look like a coloring book. So if you look at this as we zoom in close up, there's not a lot of detail around his eyes. He's just got these buttons. And everything else is just plain straight lines that could be painted, and if someone was happy with it like that, I have no issues with them doing it that way. But I want something more with this. So I'm going to be adding depth and more structure on it to give it more of a 3D effect when you're looking at it, and to add some more detail and take away the cartooniness of it, to at least tone it down. So these are going to pop off and new pieces are going to come back on. These will go back on, but it's going to make it a lot easier to paint this face if it's off. And a lot of detailing is going to be added to this. Mine is going to look coastal because that is what I'm going for in my coastal home. But the fun with these is you can literally paint them any color you want. You can decorate them any way you want. And that to me is what makes nutcrackers so fun. No matter how many pictures you look at of a nutcracker, there's always something different. So I want mine to be unique for my home. So let's get started. One of the things you can do to add texture and depth on something is to use glue gun directly on it. Now, yes, glue gun often pops off, and especially off of a painted surface, but this isn't painted yet. And the paint will actually seal it in once I do get it all done. But in order to get straight lines, which is really hard to do free-handed with a glue gun, and I'm using a mini glue gun because I want a mini bead of glue on here. One of the first places I'm going to do is a line on the crown up here, because I'm going to be doing some accent with it and I need that to be a raised section. Glue gun doesn't like to stick to metal. I had already tested on this the buttons that are actually going to go on this, and I know how the eyes are going to sit on top of this. So I knew I didn't have to be perfect with my wood repairs. I just wanted to get the edges so that they would look nice when anything showed underneath or to the side. So once I had sanded that before I put the glue gun on all over this. And so the whole thing then was sprayed with shellac, both to seal the wood putty repairs and to hopefully coat the glue gun so that the paint wants to adhere to it. Because some of the glue gun consistency, even after it's been heated, can feel a little bit like wax. So that's what's been done with this, and we're going to see how it goes as I start to paint this. And I start working on my color palette and where I want the different colors to be. I'm starting with Putty, the new color Maldives, which is a gorgeous color. And then this blue, I honestly cannot tell you what is in it except that it's HTP colors, because I know there was some Color Club color in there and a couple of other colors that I mixed for a project a couple of years ago, and I really don't remember. But I liked the color, so I've just kept it closed up in a jar and have had it for whenever I needed that shade of blue, and I definitely need that shade of blue on this Nutcracker. So I'm going to start in the middle of the gap on him, and that's going to have Putty put in there. I'm pretty sure all of this is going to take 2 coats, which would pretty much be expected. If you didn't have it sealed with shellac, you would be looking at 3 or 4 coats, because whatever this wood is like a sponge for any kind of paint if it's not been sealed. Well, the paint's not complaining about the glue stick right now, so that's good. When you're doing something like this that is art, take the time to smooth out your brush strokes. Still put a good amount of paint on your brush and then smooth, because there's just no room to brush and roll, and even the pieces of true applicator would not get in as tight as I need them to be on this. But I want paint that I know is not going to fade out outdoors. He's starting to look like a real nutcracker. Off camera, the second coat of putty of the mix I made of Maldives has been put on all of this cashmere for the hair and a base coat for the cuffs because there's something else that's going to happen with those. I used a glittered ribbon for going over the pole, and in between it has champagne. The eyes originally were just going to be these little black buttons, and they just didn't seem right to me. So I looked at a lot of different nutcrackers. I kept the mouth that came with this because it was already lined nicely and it looks like the sharpness of a nutcracker mouth. But then I decided what shape eyes I wanted, and I made a template for myself. This is not something I would ever recommend freehanding unless you are really good at that, doing that. So what I did is I made eyes in the shape that I wanted, that I knew the eyeball, or actually the pupil, would fit in here, the iris would go around it, and then the white of the eyes. So right now, the green of the iris is drying, and when that's done, I will put this on here. But by having a template of paper, it allowed me to play with the placement of where I wanted this and to trace around it and get an exact match on the two eyes. I still have black eyeliner to put on this eye, and when we come back on camera, you'll see a step that I'm going to be doing, adding texture, using a texture medium to work on the mustache, the eyebrows, and the cuffs here. So that's where this is so far. The gold also had 2 coats. When you're painting something like this, be really careful to get into all the edges. It's really easy to skip spots. But if you do, just go back and touch it up. But it's not something that is uncommon to have happen. And I'm very happy with where this is so far. It's going to have a real belt across here. So there's more steps to come because it's not nearly done yet. But it's worth the extra steps to have a detailed piece when you're finished. The next step with this is I'm going to be adding some pearl antiquing gel and some gunmetal antiquing gel. When you've been working with these products as long as I have, you tend to have an accumulation of almost everything in your closet. I've got my paper towels cut into small squares because I'm going to need to be able to wipe some of that back, and some of it is going to be wiping it back, and some of it may just stay in place with this. And I have water here with me to be able to spray this. And it allows me to play with it to get the amount I want on here. Without having too much on this. It's almost enough for me to just almost dry brush this on here, but that's putting a little bit more than what I want in places. And I don't like seeing swipe marks with the antiquing gel on something like this. You can do a curve motion, but then immediately come back and add the swipes that are up and down. Here in person, you can see the shimmer that this is giving this, but you'll see it much more clearly when I add the gunmetal over the dark blue. And no, it's not a mistake that this isn't painted. It's sealed, but it's not painted. And the back of this was also sealed with shellac because raw wood, if you paint one side only, warps pretty badly. And I'm keeping my paper towel fitting in the groove of what I'm working on. That's why it's folded tightly in my hand. You need good light so you can see where you have missed places. I'm not getting very much on my brush at all. Tons of it is a waste of your gel and just means you have a lot more to wipe off and mess with. The only places that I put it on heavy and didn't wipe back were the 2 coats for all of this gold, because I was trying to go for solid and not a glaze. I'm going back on the pants down here because I'm using this now as a highlight. And now, going to add the gunmetal to the dark blues. I'm going to shield that and put just a tiny bit of water on it because it was coming on heavier than I wanted. That's part of the nice of working with this water-based antiquing gel is you can add water to it, or as you're working on the surface, or you can use a damp paper towel to blend it as well. Don't keep wiping with the wet unless you're trying to blend. When you're still trying to remove, keep changing the side of your paper towel. And I can see spots right here that I did not get into. My brush is dry enough to just fill that. I'm going to do the rest of the blue here with the gunmetal, and we'll look at the next step. The antiquing gel is still wet, but I want to go ahead and put the next step on so that all of it has some extra time to dry. What I'm going to be using is cashmere and the HTP texture additive. This is not something you can use on walls. I had someone ask me that recently, if you could add this to paint and put it on the walls. No, it just dries too fast. But it is interesting to put on like a side tabletop that then you smooth it down really quickly to add some texture over really damaged top or over decor items. So what I'm going to be doing is using it on different parts of this to add some texture to this piece. And you have to mix it in small batches. I'll be really surprised if I manage to be able to use this and get everything done before this starts to dry on me. Use a paper towel and get under the edge of this so I don't manage to drip white paint where I don't want it. It does not take very much at all. That plate is not touching where I've painted. So, and a jar lasts a really long time. So you basically mix it in. I had like 5 teaspoons of paint, and I've got part of 2 teaspoons of the texture additive. And it's already, it just starts thickening everything up really, really fast. One of the places I want it is up here where it would be like ermine would be on a crown. And I'm doing this first so that I can get to the eyebrows as well. You cannot play around using this stuff. You really have to get with it because it becomes really gloppy. It's also fabulous. I have a video using it on how to use it on your Christmas trees.
What do you do on the Christmas tree?
Flocking it so that it looks like it has snow on it. And I mixed too much. This is already too dry. I'm going to try something I've never tried before of mixing some water into it to see if that will revive it. And this is exactly why you do not want to use it on your walls to create texture. Nope, this is going to have to be thrown out, and I will mix more and mix it in a smaller batch and get up off the floor what I just spilled on the floor so I don't track it everywhere. So dry on my spoon that it's not going to damage the texture medium. But that is one of the things you have to bear in mind working with this stuff. The other thing is getting it out of your brushes. Just pull it off with a paper towel and then work with it. I'm using the corner tip of my brush. You can see that's already and the pouncing it helps to increase the texture. Got a couple of tiny spots there that I'll have to use a tiny art brush to get in. Where that some got down onto his face. It's basically stirring this and starting to feel how it's doing. I'm trying not to add extra into this. I'd rather stir it for a little bit more and have it still workable. I've got a really skinny spot right here, so that needs to be done first while my brush is still working well with me and isn't starting to get stiff with the product. I will come back and get that edge when I can get around there. I've got a couple more places I'm thinking about putting this on, but you've seen the process and you've seen how quickly this stuff starts to muddy up, almost like a putty or even a concrete. And once it's on, it's on. I mean, you could scrape it off, you could sand it off, but it's not going to flake off, which is one of the things that makes it nice for adding texture to something like this. So I'm going to work on this and let this dry. I'm adding bling to this guy in the form of craft jewels. And before I ever started painting it or anything, I actually sat down with the jewels and laid them out and then took a photo on my phone so that I could remember the patterning and how it went. And I pulled all those stones into a Ziploc bag so that I know I had the whole set. Now I'm probably going to make some changes to this, but this very first run here is going to be exactly the way I have it. And I'm going to be using the JB Weld Super Weld to put these on there because it's light activated and it will give me a few seconds to move these around as I need to before I activate it with light, and then they'll be locked down and they won't move out of place once I continue on down the line. I'm also going to be using a pair of tweezers because it's going to help me get these little teeny tiny jewels. Well, there it went, but it's in the floor and I can see it. It will help me get them exactly in place without getting super glue all over myself and all over the jewels and pulling them up. So that's the next step that I'm going to be going through, and then we'll let you see how it looks at that point. I'm going to get just a little bit of gunmetal on my brush, tap it off, most of the way off on the plate. I can't rest it over here because we've got screws to hold this together, but I want to highlight the areas that I raised on this piece. I want to stay on the side of my brush. It's also why you don't want much in your brush. It's so easy for it to get where you don't want it. I had to stop working on the jewels because I'm putting jewels in this and I wouldn't have been able to do this. And actually, that is working as shading, so that I'm going to leave a little bit just on the shoulders of his epaulets, but not down on the actual fringe. And then I'm going to go back and use gold the same way, but on different areas. I want gold. And sometimes tapping works better than drawing your brush across it. You just have to play with it in the different areas and find out which works. A little bit on his hair. Bring out the curls that I created. The glue gun that I used is trickier to do this on. Because it's more uneven. But I'm going to finish that on this, and then we'll show you how we're going to add buttons and chain to him, and he'll be much better looking. Final things have been done to this piece. I ordered an inexpensive roll of chain. It's for jewelry making, but it's by no means gold. I don't know what it's coated with. But that, along with shank back buttons, were used. The chain was measured to go across to give the dip that I wanted. Then it was attached to the shank of the button. You can take a pair of needle nose pliers, 2 pairs. There's always a break point on these, and you just pry them apart, put it on, pry it back. That's why there were holes in the shoulder epaulets here, and why there were holes in here, so that I could sink the buttons partially down into those holes to make them sturdier and to keep them sitting upright. And these were attached again with the JB Weld super glue. It's worked really well on it. Then I did a fur beard for him. I wanted to add just another layer of texture with this. If this doesn't hold up outside, I can always take it off and just add the texture medium over the wood board that we had removed on here. I also, because this was really kind of a bear to work with, when you cut fur, you have to be careful that long strands, this was made for beard, is out of the way when you're cutting the edge as much as possible. But along those edges, it wants to fray, it wants to fall off. So once I got it glued to the wood, I very carefully ran super glue along all of those edges to catch the hair. Well, it's not hair, it's fur, fake fur, but to catch those edges so it wouldn't continue to come off. And the last thing I did before attaching it on here is I took hairspray and I sprayed 2 or 3 times on this. I shaped the beard the way I wanted it, would spray it again, use the hairspray to help me shape it to where I wanted, and spray it again. It got a total of 3 sprays because that's going to keep this also from wanting to come off and fly off. I think it's going to be fine with where my door is because it's not going to get a direct, unless we have a storm, and I would bring it in if that were the case, a lot of direct hit of rain. It's going to get a lot of sunlight, but not direct water on it. So those pieces have all been finished on this. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take fairy lights that have a timer on them and attach them along the back so that they're attached on the back, but just the bulb is coming out of the edge so that it will light. And I'm thinking I have enough of the fairy light here to go around this probably twice, so that at night on the timer it'll have a glow coming out of the back of it to help bring attention to it. So that's the last step we have to do on it, and then I'll come back and remind you of what's happened on this. instead of just letting the fairy lights go where the string allows it to, I'm bending the wire, which doesn't hurt it, to get the lights closer together. And it's just going to be a process of working all the way around the outside edge of this. And I started up here at the top with the wire to the battery pack up here, because I would prefer that the battery pack wind up at the top of this. I've also placed this upside down carefully on a towel so that nothing gets bent on the front of this nutcracker. It's just going to be going around the whole outside of this and working through this so that these lights are just barely on the edge of the front. It took 2 sets of long fairy lights to do the back of this, and it was tedious, but I think when you see it lit up, when we turn it over, and then you see it lit up tonight, you'll see that it was, in my opinion, worth the effort, and worth the effort to hide the back of this. This board is going to be coming off the back of this. It's allowed us to do some time lapses of the painting of this, and then all of these are going to be taped down so that they don't get caught on things and pull them off. It's definitely spaghetti, but it's worth doing. The nutcracker is all finished. I wanted you to see it, what it looks like in daylight, that you really cannot see the lights around the edges of it. And then we will add more video to this end here to let you see what it looks like when it gets dark tonight. We're not finished with Christmas decoration here, but this is a start, and hopefully it has inspired you to figure out some things you might want to tackle, and some ways to take something that's pretty inexpensive and make it look like a really nice piece. It didn't take much more in money to get the extra pieces that I needed to bling this little guy out, and I'm happy with him and expect to use him for many years to come. Thanks for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It helps us more than you know and costs you nothing. Thanks for being here. And happy holidays to your family and yours, no matter what you celebrate. I hope it's a joyous occasion.